Hello, welcome to the Breakthrough Hiring Show. I'm your host, James Mackey. Welcome back. We're really happy to be here with you. I'm here with Elijah, our co-host. Elijah, how you doing?
Doing well, James. Thanks for having me here.
Yeah, it's great to have you back on the series AI for Hiring. And we also have Wouter Durville. Wouter is the founder and CEO of Test Gorilla. Wouter, welcome to the show. How you doing?
Yeah, great. Great to be on the show. Thank you, James.
Yeah, I'm pumped. I think most people in the industry have heard of Test Gorilla, very successful company. And I'm really excited to learn more about you. I think just off the bat, like just from the top, I'd love to learn about you, where you're based, a little bit about yourself, and then we can get a little bit into your founding story too. But I saw on LinkedIn, are you in Spain? Is that right? Or where are you based out of?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I
Yeah.
am Dutch, as you could probably hear from the accent, but I've been here in Barcelona for over a decade. So I moved here with my then girlfriend when we had a remote company starting to grow a little bit. We were like, hey, we can work anywhere. This was way before COVID. We chose Barcelona, which was a fantastic choice for
Oh,
us.
nice. So when you started Test Gorilla, you were working remote, just traveling?
Yes, yeah.
Oh,
I was
that's
founder of
awesome.
another company, and that was very international. And that started to grow a bit. So we're like, hey, wait a minute, we don't have to be in rainy Amsterdam. We can be anywhere. We picked Barcelona.
Yeah, it's funny when I started Secure Vision, I was actually working remote, and it was I had a corporate job that I worked really hard to get, really hard, and then I got there and I
Yeah.
was like, I think I need to do this entrepreneurship thing. I was getting a little bit. I was grateful, but I was also getting bored, and I remember I quit my job, started Secure Vision, and started traveling, and for the first like 2 to 3 years, I think closer to 3 years, I was essentially traveling. I'd lived in like 9 different countries
Wow.
and travel. And then the company was growing, and so it started to settle down a little bit and open an office and these types of things. But remote work, I started doing that before COVID as well. And it was a little bit trickier because so it's sorry, harder to find places with good internet. But really, what opened that up was Airbnb for me at least. And that was incredible because I wouldn't have been able to afford traveling to just staying in hotels or anything.
No way, no. And
Yeah.
when did you start Secure Vision? When was
Uh,
this?
Technically 2015. I went full time in 2016. I think like February
Yeah,
2016.
nice. Yeah, so way
Yeah.
before COVID. Yeah,
Yeah, a
nice.
little bit. Yeah. But Airbnb was out. I don't know how long it had been out at that point, but it was definitely, and I don't know if I've been able to start the business, honestly, if I didn't have Airbnb, because there's times where I found a room in a townhome in Belgrade for $200 a month. But at the time, I didn't have money saved up, so I don't know how I would have been able to do it. But so, anyways, something about more about your travels. Like, where did you guys try? Did you go straight to Barcelona, or did you go to a bunch of different places?
Actually, my favorite country in the world is Colombia in South America. So we went to Colombia for a month together with my girlfriend, and then also a month to Barcelona to see, okay, which city do we pick? We love the culture and the nature and everything in Colombia. I'm not sure if you've ever been, but what a country. But it's just, yeah, it's a bit far away, right, from family. It's a bit less secure, of course. So and now with kids, I have 3 young kids. I'm very happy that we picked Barcelona, but we were in doubt between those two.
Yeah. And then how did that come about with Test Gorilla? I'd love to learn more about how you had that idea and decided to take the leap of faith and start the company.
Yeah, of course. Yes, I've basically been an entrepreneur my whole life since I was 10, I think. I was selling candy and then organizing parties and God knows what, like all kinds of startups, for profit, not for profit. And some of them were very serious, right? Like with a business plan and everything. But the last company I had before Tesco, that was not like that. It was a company that I started together with my wife, a social enterprise selling handmade carpets or rugs online. And they were made by women in developing countries. And this idea was really born out of like in the night with a glass of wine and hey, it would be so nice to have these rugs and that, like really organic, and it just kept on growing. It was still like a relatively small company. It was a nice lifestyle business, let's say. But we would always have huge numbers of applicants if we would have a vacancy, but literally up to a few thousand. And that's really a lot, right? If you're a small company without even a recruiter on the payroll. So we'd get all these resumes from around the world and we would really struggle with it because and I think it attracted so many people because it was like design and social enterprise and remote. So there was a lot of things to think for people. So we got all these resumes and we would be like, oh my God, like how on earth do we find the best person, first of all, out of self-interest, we just want to hire the best. But also, how do we make it a fair process? Like we were a social enterprise. We want to give everyone a fair chance, not only the people with these shiny brands on their CV or resume that we recognize. And also, how do we make it efficient? If we spend 30 seconds on every resume, it's like days. So we were really struggling with that. Like CVs clearly didn't work for us, or resumes, as you say in the US. So we started thinking like, hey, but there must be something else. Then we introduced like little tests that we basically stole. I wouldn't say copy, but basically stealing from on the internet, like from other places. So to have a little bit of a filter at the beginning, like at the top of the recruitment funnel, let's say, and that really worked. So we're like, hey, wow, this really works, but it's just a lot of work, and this is not our profession. Like we don't know what we're doing really, actually. So then I started looking as a potential customer for what Test Gorilla has become, right? The talent assessment with different types of tests and video questions, you name it. We can talk about it more maybe later. But I started searching for the product. Hey, where is this product? My intention was not to start that company. It was like, I just want to buy it to have a better way of filtering and creating a shortlist for my candidates, like in a data-driven way that predicts job success. And it just wasn't there. And that's how the idea was born. I was like, wow, really? Like a company, the only one who's struggling with these terrible CVs or resumes. It's a disaster. It clearly doesn't work. Like, really? There's no one developed this product yet. So that's how the idea was born. And that was already, when was this? Like 2016, I think. We launched Test Gorilla in 2020. So there was a couple of years before that. And this was, I think many entrepreneurs, you might recognize this. You always have these ideas, right? They have like little notebooks and you make notes from the craziest, weird ideas that are mostly very bad. But sometimes you have a better idea. And this one really stuck. So every time I was on a holiday or something, I was just like, oh my God, like thinking it through and all the things I'd learned also as an entrepreneur, like it ticked all the boxes in terms of scalability, solving a real problem, having positive social impact, being for profit, and you name it, like a whole list of things that you like learned that I thought were important to set up a new business in the future. So I just kept being so excited. And then I spoke with Otto, my friend, long-term friend and co-founder, about this idea. He was still a partner at Bain and Company, the consulting firm. And he's, wow, I love it so much. He got like super excited as well. And then like on the plane back, he was living in Amsterdam. On the plane back, he's like writing me emails, like more ideas. And then we took it from there. So that's how the idea was born. And that's how we decided to go for it. That was 2019.
That's awesome. And I was looking on LinkedIn. I didn't realize that your team raised a $70 million Series A. That's a large
right.
Series A.
Yeah. That was probably one of the largest, surely in Europe. Yeah, a lot of money, but there's also huge potential, right? It's not just Test Gorilla, but it's a bit bigger than that. It's skills-based hiring, right? There's a big move away from CV or resume-based hiring towards skills-based hiring, and it's accelerating fast during COVID, but also post-COVID. You really see more and more companies adopting it. Many companies still finding out how to do this, but it's a big wave. And I think these investors also recognize that. They're like, hey, there will be some winners in this mega shift. And that's how we managed to raise so much money. And it's a very fortunate position to be in. So we still have a lot of cash, and it allows us to hire amazing people, scientists, you name it, to build product, to fail also, to try stuff, fail, and try again. So it's a very fortunate position to be in, to be so well funded.
Yeah, it's an incredible success story. And you've developed a strong brand as well in a short amount of time in the industry, which is really cool.
Yeah.
And I would love to learn a little bit more about the nuance of the product and what you can offer to customers. Could you tell us a little bit more about that? It's getting a little more product detail and what you offer.
Yeah. So we see Test Gorilla as a talent discovery platform, right? So we help organizations just to hire better, hire faster, and hire without bias through skills-based hiring. Now, the first product we launched is a talent assessment. It's our talent assessment, right? So what you can do is in our product, you can create an assessment, and then you can add up to 5 different tests. So we have a very big library of over 400 scientifically validated tests in all kinds of categories, like from cognitive ability to coding tests to personality tests, like you name it. So you can add up to 5 different tests in an assessment, and then add your own questions to it. For example, hey, why do you want to work for our company, with a video response? Or here's a customer email, how would you respond, with an essay response? So you can be quite creative there, and I would recommend making it real life task based, right? You can actually see a little bit of work from talent. So then you have created your assessment, and then there's different ways that you can invite candidates for your assessment. So you can either invite them by email, in bulk, or one by one, or you can even put a link on your vacancy, right, on the job post. You're like, hey, this is a job post, blah, blah, blah. Instead of like in the past, people would say, hey, if you're interested, email us. We say, no, if you're interested, take the assessment, right? And then people could take the assessment. And then as a customer, you log in to Test Gorilla, and you see all your candidates ranked automatically from the highest scoring to the lowest scoring. And then you can click on them, you can see their video responses or other types of questions, and maybe take a look at their CV and resume, and then take it from there. But what you end up doing is you spend your time on the best candidates. And what we really recommend or preach almost is to do a top of funnel, to give every candidate a fair chance to stand out, and remove that bias, because it's really hard to take out bias. I think most, or if not almost every recruiter, almost no recruiter, let's say, wants to be biased, but you are. Like, it's really hard to judge people on stuff that you've never heard of, universities or companies, etc.
Mm-hmm.
And you may just make it much more data driven this way, and you give everyone a fair chance, and you find those hidden gems, right? Like, you find some amazing talent you would surely have missed otherwise, and save a lot of time, of course. So that's in a nutshell how that talent assessment product works. And I think if I may, like two things that are a little different from how the industry traditionally functioned, because assessments obviously are not new, right? They've been around for a century or so. I think in the Second World War or something, they got really big in the army or something like that. They've been around forever, but they were typically used quite late in the process, right? They're like, oh, we have done this whole funnel, recruitment funnel, right? Interviewed people. We have 3 candidates left, and we sent them to an assessment center or something like that. We say, hey, let's turn that around. Let's first see if people have the skills that you need for the job, and then invest time in the people that do. So we flipped it around. That was quite different. And the other big difference is that I briefly touched upon already, is like the very big library of tests, over 400 different tests. And we're doing that for a reason, because there's academic research that you might be familiar with that actually shows that the most predictive thing for job predictiveness is multi-measure testing. So that's a very complicated word, but it basically says test for different skills in an assessment, not just one thing, like only a psychometric test or only coding skills or something, but actually combine different things, and that makes it very predictive. And it's, in a way, it's very similar to what you do in a job interview, right? If you're hiring a programmer, let's say, like, okay, of course, do you want to know, does this person have the JavaScript skills or whatever coding skills? But if that person has it, it's not, oh, check, bam, you're hired. No, of course not. You're like, okay, you're a team leader, so I also want to see your management skills or your communication skills and your culture ad or culture fit with the company. So you're also looking for these different things, and that we're mimicking in our talent assessment.
Yeah, it's like very comprehensive, right? And that's exciting too. And it's how broad is in terms of the types of roles and industries that you play in. Is essentially, does this work as well for folks in technology as well as healthcare, manufacturing, anything in between, or is it dialed into specific industries or types of roles? Like, what does that look like?
Yeah, good question. So it's very broad. So our because of that huge library, you can create very relevant assessments for a very large range of jobs. But our focus is on white collar jobs, right? So it's less focused on manufacturing or those kind of
Yeah, that's what I
roles.
was curious about. My assumption was more so on the white collar space, but I was wondering, because I know just in terms of expanding and whatnot, and all these different, I was just wondering, yeah, if there's like, where do you typically see the most demand? So
Yeah, no, so definitely in white collar, but then it's a one-stop shop, and that's also very consciously has been our positioning and strategy, right? So for a typical white collar company, tech company, whatever, they can use a test scorer for almost any role, right? Like from the programmers to customer success to admin, finance, you name it, by combining different tests.
yeah, that's awesome. And I would be curious to get your thoughts on how your company's thinking about AI right now. I
Yeah.
think all of us in this space and talent acquisition are thinking about how do we actually implement AI in a meaningful way that's really improving things for our customers, right? And it's challenging, right? It's challenging sometimes to find those use cases that are truly compelling, that are moving businesses forward. And I'm curious to learn more about the conversations that you might be having with leaders within your organization and other industry leaders and investors or customers. And I don't know if you're currently implementing things or you're thinking about it, or I just love to get a sense for where your head's at on this topic right now for our industry.
Yeah. No, I find it super exciting. I think it's fantastic for our industry also. But yeah, it's clearly changing. It's changing the way we work, and therefore it's changing the way we hire, I would say. So I would say in terms of recruiting, first of all, the resume and cover letters are dead, right? Like these days, it must be terrible to be a recruiter, right? You get like all these perfect ChatGPT letters or resume. Yeah, that clearly doesn't work anymore. So I think that is another push towards skills-based hiring very clearly. But then within the skills that you're looking for, I think what we hear from customers and what we actually see in our data, right? We have around 700,000 candidates per month now. That's over 7 million years. So we have a lot of data, and we're starting to see those shifts, right? So I think away from And that goes very slowly, I must say, but like just subtly you see it happening away from hard skills and towards more soft skills, for example, right? So
Yeah.
the typical stuff like, let's say, translating or stuff, or basic accounting or data entry, so many things can be done by the AI, right? But there's still a lot of human skills, right, in terms of leadership and planning, and you name it, right? So communication, there's so many that are just ever more important, you could say. So that's one thing we see. Another thing we see is that is just demand for AI tests, right? So we have a lot of AI tests now in the library, a deep learning test or a machine learning test, or there's a very, very specific one, like Keras or PyTorch. There's all kinds of specific software tests, how do you call it? Language test almost for AI. So there's a lot of demand for those things as well, right? But you want people who are efficient, who can use those new ways of working and use AI tools.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and so I'm curious on for assessments right now. We're talking with CEOs that are implementing different solutions at different parts of the talent acquisition funnel, from everything from sourcing to screening, interviewing to assessments and whatnot. And I'm curious from feedback from customers, or when you're thinking about the next 12 to 18 months, whether it be in your own product or maybe just in talent acquisition holistically, whatever you want to think through, is like where do you see the most disruption, or like the biggest changes occurring in terms of implementing AI? Do you see anything
Right.
specific, or does anything stand out to you?
Yeah, no, that's if I focus on our own product. So there we're now really starting to implement AI inside the product. So one
Yeah.
thing, some exciting thing we just launched is an AI recommender, right? We have this big library of tests, as I said, but then people are drowning a little bit sometimes, right? Oh, which test to use? And I'm not the expert, right? And fair enough, right? So we can help them manually with our team. But we now have built like an AI recommender that, based on all the experience and scientific knowledge that we have,
Mhm.
helps you with a push of the button. You can upload a job description, and bang, it gives you a recommendation for the best assessment. So those kind of things are very exciting. I think they really help to improve our product, but therefore also improve hiring processes, I think. And then I think in the future, the other thing for us that where I see a lot of potential for AI is in really matching those candidates directly with jobs, right? To really find from that
Yeah.
mega database of millions of candidates, but then also tens of thousands of jobs, like to say, hey, these are the best match based on all the data points that we have. That's very exciting for us as
Yeah.
well.
Do you see your team ever going in the direction of actually doing more of the potentially like AI interviewing? I know it's like you're doing a lot of the tests and assessments. We're seeing some companies going in that direction too, where there's even like some products where it's like the AI video interviewing. I know you said there's also an
Right.
element to some of your tests where, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think you said like people are responding via video. And do you see yourself incorporating AI into those types of tests where candidates are responsive to have a more of like an interactive experience there? Or do you feel like that's really a different product? That's not where you play, like you're going to stay laser focused on more so just the testing and eval versus the AI interviewing? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's not our immediate focus, but it's definitely something that we're discussing and looking at. Because indeed, like you said, like we call it custom questions, so you can add these custom also video questions to your assessment. And we have a big question bank for that as well, to help customers say, hey, you're hiring for a front end developer, here's a set of questions that you can really help to do in a skills based kind of way, ask questions to your candidates.
Yeah.
Analyzing those responses would be a very logical thing to put AI on top of that. Say, here's an automatic kind of rating of those responses. Something we're not offering now. So now it's the customer who is watching those responses. But this would be a very kind of logical thing, right? Where to apply AI to. And then the next step could be to just have an AI bot there, right? To do those
Mhm.
questions, to ask and answer those questions, or have the
Yeah.
conversation with candidates.
Yeah, there's a lot of money being poured into the space right now. I know there's a company called Mercor based out of, I think they're out of San Francisco now. They just raised a series A for 30 million.
Oh wow.
And it's really based around like AI video interviewing
Yeah.
assessment. So I think they're actually connecting like engineering talent to companies based in Silicon Valley, or primarily like that tech hyper growth scene. And essentially like the candidates are proactive. It's a different business model than what you're doing,
Yeah.
but I'm just saying, like in that space of like cancer going on, doing interviews, and then getting linked up to different companies. So different kind of variations of that business model we're seeing a lot of money get poured into right now.
Yeah.
So it's a wild time, and yeah. So I think it's an interesting use case, and it's kind of it's definitely not what you're doing. It's like adjacent, or it's like similar in a sense because it's like the eval in a sense, but it's just from a different angle. But I don't think they're investing in like the testing or anything like that. It's nothing like that. It's more of just I assume matching role requirements that are provided by a hiring team, and
Yeah.
then giving the AI instructions on, hey, figure this stuff out. I want you to
Yeah.
ask questions about this stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Yeah, it's
it's
hard. I think the investors are pouring in it a lot, and I would do the same. Like they're just spraying money a little bit to see like what's going to work.
yeah,
I don't have an opinion on this particular company, but I think it's a lot of them are a little bit feature based, right? Like smaller features in the product. It's hard to build like a long to see a long term platform kind of company there. But that's my just 2 cents from as an outsider.
yeah.
For us, this would be more like a feature almost inside the platform than a big standalone company. But
Yeah,
maybe I'm
for
wrong.
sure.
Maybe I'm
Oh
wrong.
yeah, for sure. And it's interesting too. And I think too, it's like some of the more like well-established companies that are like a holistic product, which at this point, Tuscarora is definitely in that bucket. It's things are
Yeah.
evolving so fast, right?
Yeah.
It's almost like being an early adopter of implementing this type of stuff into your product isn't necessarily the idea of just being first is not always ideal because I'm thinking about just like some of the I've been talking with different founders and CEOs of uh, like AI hiring products, and they're telling me the way that we're building our product now is completely different than how we were thinking about building it like 3 months ago. It's like things are just moving so fast,
Yeah.
and I think it's some of our like more established like CEOs that I speak with, like Greenhouse's CEO and Steve Bartel over at Gem, and how they're thinking about AI. They're implementing, they're doing things, but it's a little bit more reserved where they're just sitting back and watching. They're like, okay, we have this great product and solution we're delivering, but we're not going to jump the gun and just overcommit in one area.
Yeah.
And really, I try
Yeah.
to sit back and say, okay, what are the use cases that are actually like really driving
Yeah.
business forward and looking at what other people are doing a little more.
Yeah,
It's
and you
just
want
really
to
interesting.
prevent like introducing bias also in your product and
Yeah.
in our space. It's so sensitive, right? Like with AI,
Yeah.
and there's been quite a few cases where it went wrong. So we definitely want to be on the sensitive side in that.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. For sure. Yeah. That's an interesting one. I'm still waiting I know we brought up on the show a couple times Workday class action lawsuit. I don't know if you've heard of that one,
Yeah.
Walter.
Well.
Yeah. So Workday is it's like a class action lawsuit. They're getting sued for potentially their AI talent acquisition assistant discriminating
Yeah.
on candidates based on race and age and whatnot. So it's yet to be seen what's
Yeah.
actually happening there, or like what will happen and how valid the claims are and whatnot. But it'll be interesting too because it'll also set a precedent for the industry on, I think, a lot of the laws and regulations.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, very much. Yeah, and a bit longer ago we had higher view as well. They also had like with the video interviewing quite a few issues, I think, with bias that creeped in.
oh really? Which one was
Yeah,
I know higher view. I'm just trying to think.
I think
I
that
don't know
was
about
how
this.
many 5-6 years ago, maybe a higher view.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
DUV. I
Yeah.
think what you mentioned earlier, Wouter, is super interesting and isn't only, specific to the TA space of what things are going to be like an AI powered feature within a true solution and a true platform versus all of these what might be called like tools that money is being thrown at them by VC firms, but they don't actually have a clear vision of how they're going to become a platform, right? Like they're a little
Correct.
tool that has taken Chat GPT or maybe some other LLMs, and they're doing just a little bit more than what you could maybe do on your own, right? With the standard version of GPT. Maybe they have some proprietary data sources, et cetera. But I think it's the ones who, in my personal opinion, who will win are the ones who can build true solutions where you have a true platform, right? That is bringing a solution and solving a problem, and you're using AI really well and can continue to architect the platform in a way where as AI develops further, you can continue to develop your product, right? So the product is very like AI centric moving forward versus
Yes.
platforms where the AI is only a feature or where it's an AI tool startup that has no path to become a platform. Does that make sense at all?
Yeah, 100%. That's a more eloquent way of putting it. That's exactly what my point. I very much agree with that. So I think that's also something we internally always look at. Hey, AI is really a means to an end, right? It's not the end. It's not, oh, we have AI. No, it's this is a very useful
Yeah.
tool, really, to indeed do stuff better, to recommend better tests, to match people better. Like there's fantastic applications, but it is a way to get there. Literally, I had a conversation earlier this week in for a new product we're building for around talent sourcing. And I don't really care. And it sounds really bad because there's people like machine learning experts and all these fantastic people in our team. And they're like, I don't really care how you do it. I just want to see great results. And if it's AI, fantastic. If it's Algolia or whatever other tool, it's also great. I just want to, as a customer, do you really care? No, I don't think you do. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think so.
Yeah.
I also think it's like the concept of, I don't know, I like to me, it's every company is essentially going to become this idea of an AI company is going to very quickly going to become obsolete. It's just going to be part of how tech stacks are built, right? Like companies are
It's
just
like
going
cloud, right? AWS.
Right.
Who's talking about we have AWS? Like, okay,
we are a cloud company.
maybe,
right.
Yeah, like we're a cloud. Nobody's saying that anymore, right?
Well, it's funny.
Exactly.
My buddy was like, it's like saying if you have a refrigerator in a house, you're not a refrigerator company or house. Like,
Yeah.
That's just that's how stuff you have in a house. Yes, obviously. Yeah, so I think it's like the concept of the tech industry. Like I feel like the concept of the tech industry is gonna disappear, right? Every industry is gonna be the tech industry. Every company, doesn't matter industry, it's gonna be tech.
Yeah.
It's the same with.
Yeah, if I look at our venture capital, we've got quite a few venture capital firms on our cap table, but they only invest in tech. But it's pretty much every company is tech now. So
like everybody, right?
FinTech, InsurTech, you just throw tech on whatever industry, and
exactly.
That concept is gonna. I think it's cool and it's interesting. I think we're already seeing a lot of the startups that maybe names that you got investment a couple of years ago, like you just don't hear of them anymore. I think a lot of them have probably gone out of business. I think a lot of companies started. Elijah, tell me if I'm wrong. You probably know more about this than I do, but a lot of the co-pilot stuff and like helping with content generation. There's just so many tools that kind of popped up initially around those, and I actually don't see quite as many of those anymore. I don't think. I don't come across it. So I wonder if they just already gone out of business. But I think so, probably, right?
they have to get traction. And as soon as some of the bigger players, like Canva, for example, in content creation, if you had this little tool where you could generate, let's say, videos, or you could make some slides, and that was like their tool, and then Canva's like made it a feature, right? One of their many features, all of a sudden, boom, you're done. So I think that's the big risk sometimes, right? With these, what's more of an AI tool than a true platform, is the bigger players are going to figure it out pretty quickly if you're a one-trick pony, if you will. And that's the main thing. And then they integrate that. Maybe they have more scale, right? Their pricing, you're already paying for it, and they add it for the marginal increase. Let's say you pay $5 more a month, but the standalone tool's like $60 a month. Like it's like a no-brainer. You're going to use Canva's new feature for $5 versus that AI slide creation tool for it. So yeah, I think you're right. I think they're falling by the wayside as these bigger companies add more AI powered features.
Yeah, 100%. And I think the other thing is like there's a lot of these AI startups. What I hear from these venture capital firms is they have quite a bit of traction initially, right? Because every CTO or CMO or you name it has budget. Do I hear AI? Here's budget, right? So there's a lot of initial traction, which is great, fantastic to be in, right, as a startup. But then to keep those customers, right? There's a lot of churn. If I look at for myself, I'm churning a lot. Like I've tried quite a few things, and I out, and I go, it's brutal, right? So you have to move. And then with these new models coming out, and indeed bigger companies adopting them themselves or buying these companies and incorporating them, it's brutal. It's not easy to build like a standalone company, I think.
Yeah, no, definitely. But yeah, it has to be like, I think, centered around the solving the problem. Like Elijah, what you said, like not looking at AI as like an end all be all. Like we're here to solve a problem, and to add as business as executives, like we're here for opportunity and to create value.
Yeah,
through solving the right problem that will create that type of opportunity, that market opportunity for investors, if that's the plan.
I think having that vision too, James. So maybe you start with this one tool, and a lot of companies, I think, that's the end of it. They almost see that as the end goal, instead of, let's say you start with, I don't know, AI interviewing, or maybe it's AI powered testing or an AI powered ATS, something, but your vision is to like become, let's say, an AI powered greenhouse or AI agent powered workday. Like you've got this kind of like bigger vision of where it can go and what it can become, even if you're only starting with one tool. And I'm just not sure enough of the founders are, getting further ahead than that, where they can pitch to the investors and their customers and even their own team, we're not just creating this one tool. Like, we see the future of hiring in 10 years being, X, and the AI is going to be helping with all these different things. And we're building for that day. We're not building for 6 months from now only, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
I don't know, it's just my opinion.
that's the issue with, I think, a lot of the Copilot stuff and the
Yeah.
content creation stuff is it's like, where do you really build from there? It's like there's no logical, like, why is that company well positioned to build in any, why would we back these founders? Like,
Yeah.
these founders, there's no compelling story, like in terms of, because your customer feedback is on product roadmap is just going to be so dispersed because it's just
Right.
such a vague general little feature versus really dialing in and solving like one important high leverage problem, like some of the use cases that we're seeing, whether it's Skrilla or some of the AI interviewing, which I think is a very valuable use case. It's like that, if you like, I love AI interviewing, right? That's a space that I'm really excited about right now. And to me, I like the idea of some of those companies. I think a fair amount of them will be very successful because it's also very logical. It's like you identify a niche customer base, like ideally, some of them are sprayed wide, but identify your customer base. They're going to give you product feedback that will logically build out more of a holistic product. And you're going to get pulled in a more specific direction than like some of those initial AI products where it's just like these vague, like kind of note takers. It's like, how are you, like, what are you going to do? You're gonna go like into a CRM space? That sounds like that's a huge undertaking. What are you gonna do? You're gonna go into like sales enablement? Where like it's just so, it is like a very small feature, and it's not hard to build. Like some of these things too. It's you get, I don't know, like a full-time mid junior level engineer can get pretty far on some of this stuff. Like it's like literally that simple. Like somebody who knows a little bit of Python can do an OpenAI plugin, like API. It's just not that hard to do some of this stuff. It's just that's not a product.
Yeah. No, I completely agree with that. Speaking about Deskerella, we see ourselves as a talent discovery platform. We have seen ourselves from the beginning, right? Starting with these tests, but only expanding so towards talent assessment, right? And way more tests, more sophisticated tests, more science-backed, adding like these video questions, etc. Now, AI video is a very logical one for the future as well. And then expanding to talent sourcing, right? But it's like a much bigger vision indeed. I think I think that's a good way to go. Yeah.
It's awesome. And it's also cool to see. I think we're seeing some of the most successful recruiting tech products like expanding into a lot more product lines, which has been a huge push over the last a year or two specifically. We had the CEO Nikos of Workable, and their seems, geez, they have a product for everything. And then you see like Gem, right? They started out as like outbound sourcing cadences for candidate outreach, email data, that kind of thing. And now they have a CRM, they have the applicant tracking system. There's other products too, and they're expanding within that. And so I was actually really curious to learn a little more. We got a few more minutes here. You're expanding into sourcing. Could you tell us a little bit about what went into that decision strategically to expand your product offering into sourcing technology?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, so maybe it goes back a little bit to our mission and vision. So our mission is to democratize opportunity for talent from all walks of life, with a vision of 1 billion people in dream jobs. So it's a kind of an ambitious vision, you could say, and this ties into it very well. So with our assessment product, of course, now anyone has all of a sudden a chance to stand out, right, and be noticed and picked up by recruiters, not just on the people who only the people who have a fantastic CV. And then the next step, basically, I'm looking at our own databases. You could say on the one hand, you have these millions of candidates who are now taking these assessments, right? So we have all that data about these people who are looking for their dream job. And on the other hand, we have these tens of thousands of jobs, right? And they're looking for amazing talent. And we're sitting on both. And our mission is like to the vision of 1 billion people in dream jobs. And it's like connecting two databases. So for us, it was so logical and in line with what we're doing to start connecting those. But it's a little bit chicken and egg, right? If you would start with, that's really hard, right? If you have zero candidates, 0 jobs, like it's a bad place to start. So we started from the assessment, but now that we have quite a bit of traction and so many jobs and people, we feel it's a very logical next step to say, hey, we connect the two. And also, there's just so much waste in recruitment. You guys know very well. I think like for every job, we have like hundreds of candidates, or depending on the company, of course, but only one gets hired. And all these other candidates have invested so much in that process as well. So I think it's also very candidate friendly to kind of say, hey, are there ways we can still match them with other opportunities?
So is that like essentially if a candidate completes a test for one organization, are they able to use that assessment or test that they completed to submit to other jobs? Is that essentially how it would
Yeah,
work?
that's right. So they can
Okay.
reuse their scores. It's their scores, right? It's not a company. The company doesn't own it. If you look at
Okay.
privacy laws and
Yeah.
everything, it's your cognitive ability, your personality. So yeah, the idea is that they can reuse that, right? To say, hey, maybe this was not a great match, but hey, did you think about these roles? Like these would be fantastic.
Yeah, so
Position.
that's okay. So then will the view be a company can put in search criteria for a certain skill set, and then basically the profiles with people with completed assessments they can click through and then set up like an interview with, or how does that
That's
motion
right.
work?
Yeah, that's right. So
Okay.
indeed, can in the future the customers will be able to. It's basically you could say close to LinkedIn. LinkedIn is the biggest database of resumes in the world, but we are taking a different approach. It's skills based. So this will be we're creating a huge database of skills. So if you're saying, hey, I look for someone who speaks Dutch, because I'm Dutch, and knows is really well at JavaScript and a great fit with our culture. Yeah, we know who those people are. We have tested them, so we have all that data on people, so we can tell you, hey, look at these people and invite them to your.
So what is that? And there's some platforms like that, like you think about like an Upwork, right? Or different where it's like limited, right? Where it's you're hiring people on a project basis, or something
Yeah.
where it's like it has to flow through the platform so people don't go around it. Is it going to be like a structured a little bit like one of those types of marketplaces, or is it going to be like, okay, this is for W-2 full-time employment hires? What does that motion look like? So as a company, I'm clicking on a profile. Okay, I want to work with Sally. What happens from there, right?
No, it's closer to LinkedIn. Of course, you can find people for any type of role, but I would say it's for permanent roles. Just like people are
Yeah.
using or companies are using our platform now. They use it to find permanent employees. But now you can also source them. So because at this moment, like people bring their own or they post their own links and vacancies everywhere. But now we can say, hey, here actually are skills tested candidates already, so you can actually have access to that database and invite them for your jobs. That's the and they're skills tested. That's the big difference, right, with
Okay.
existing platforms.
So how does that, can we get into whatever you're comfortable sharing in terms of pricing for that? Like how companies will engage on the pricing model to source candidates through your product?
I can't because we don't. It's not live yet, so we're
Oh,
building
okay.
it as we speak.
Yeah, yeah. No
We
worries.
don't
Yeah,
have the
just say
pricing
whatever
yet. There will
yeah.
be a price,
Yeah.
but I guess it will be something similar to something around the number of people that you invite or something. That will
Yeah.
be probably the way we
Oh
price
yeah,
it.
that's a cool idea. Like I always, because in those business models, that's like always where my head goes. Okay, like how do you structure that aspect of
Yeah,
when folks actually engage? Like I'm thinking like from the business perspective, from your perspective too. But yeah, that's like a ton of
yeah,
value because you're right. You're already sitting on these databases, so it's like it's not like you're building this kind of product from scratch in a sense. It's you already have all of this data,
yeah,
right? And this
yeah,
is like a play where you need a lot of data in order to make it successful, and it's already right there. And it's
yeah,
interesting. I know I brought up this company Mercor earlier, and it's an AI interviewing, but it's like still this concept of completing these interviews, and then there's like this like searchable kind of database of people you could click through and pull into your organization. That is something that
nice.
also is like I think that concept has been around, right?
Yeah,
But I think companies there's like more interesting applications happening right now. And I find the test grill application a lot more interesting because the evaluations you're doing are a lot more thorough and the assessments and whatnot. And then also there's some of these other platforms too that are doing this marketplace-ish. I don't know if that's the right, if we could call it a marketplace.
Yeah, like
yeah.
a talent
Talent
marketplace.
marketplace. Yeah,
But yeah, I just don't think there's also limitations in terms of how folks can engage with those talent. So if you think about something like an Upwork, which I know is not a great analogy because this is way different and better in my opinion, but like still like the concept of companies searching for profiles, it's like very limited in scope. Like you can't really put somebody through a full interview process. Like you can't talk to them outside of the platform. You're not hiring them as a W-2, right? In the US. It's not so it's very limited. And then you only or typically, at least in my experience working with the tool, I don't know, maybe I don't know everything about it, but it's just limited and like limits this project scope, but I haven't seen a tool that's like really effectively doing that like on the W-2 side, like full time with this level of like vetting and assessment that's taking place. And again, this is I think a lot more valuable than what AI is doing currently. It's
right.
different, but like still there's a lot more value in all these deep technical assessments and tests than I think just AI screening for role requirements.
And
I do
often
see a
based on
ton of value.
keywords and stuff like
It's a
that, right?
different,
Like,
it's a totally different, it's a different use case, but I guess what I'm saying is I see a ton of value in that. And I could see the sourcing piece being like this product being like huge, right? Like I think pulling off that correctly and just like with the data you have, like that could be a massive product for us.
yeah, that's what I think too. It's
Yeah.
a lot of work to get it right, but yeah,
Yeah.
we're in a very unique position to have all that data, like you said, to have those millions of candidates, and then to have all that data, and then you can apply AI to it. Let's say to
Yeah.
indeed find the best way of matching jobs,
Right.
people.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's exciting for sure.
It's a massive undertaking though. Do you have any kind of timeline on when your team is thinking about going live with this product, or is it still in
It's for
early
sure
season?
next year. So in 2025, we'll go live. The exact month I can't tell you. I don't know. We're still
Yeah.
working very hard, but a lot of work has been done already. So we're getting close.
That's awesome. When you're about to go live or when you're ready, when you want to, you should come back on the show
Nice.
and we can talk about it. I would love to learn about the product when it's ready to go live and continue the conversation.
I would love that. Yeah. Thanks, James.
Awesome. Look, we're coming up on time. That was it flew by. This was a lot of fun. Wouter, thank you so much for joining us today and sharing your insights. I know people are going to get a lot of value out of this conversation. So thank you so much for joining us.
Great. I love being here. Thank you so much.
Awesome. All right. Thanks for tuning in, everyone. We'll talk to you soon. Take care.